Hi, Dave Youngquist, Michigan Toy Soldier. Today I want to demonstrate some techniques on creating realistic looking groundwork for your model or your figure. Now, I've been working on this 90mm Andrea trophy kit. It's a great kit, as I've said before, and now it's time to really get him attached, or the horse attached to this base. Now, I had the base custom made, and I've covered it with painter's tape just to protect it from some of the effects we're going to be putting on it. Let's get started. Okay, I'm mixing together 2-part epoxy. Now on this particular figure I have to use epoxy because there's no way to pin this figure, which I typically would recommend. You know, take a brass rod, drill it up through something. But there's already steel rods in the horse's legs, and we're going to be covering all of this with 2-part epoxy putty, so we're going to get a really good joint on this. This is just a little bit of added insurance. So we apply this to the bottom of the base, and we're going to attach this right to our custom base. Okay, the base for our groundwork is going to be Aves 2-part epoxy putty. It's a 50-50 mix, and just make sure that you get this stuff thoroughly mixed so that it dries properly. Okay, now that the putty is mixed, and I generally like to let it set up for 10-15 minutes, we just start applying it to the base. Now I'm going to cover up the existing Andrea resin base, and at this part of our process you don't have to be that fussy. Just make sure you get a nice even coverage. We'll do all our texturing and everything else once we get this first coat down. Now we're just finishing up getting the entire base covered with the Aves Epoxy putty, and as soon as I'm done filling this little area in, we're going to use a textured stone, which is basically a piece of broken concrete I found in the driveway in front of my house, borrowing the idea from Bill Horan, and it's a great one. And once you get the putty in, you begin to texture it. Just go in and texture. It gives a very realistic rough surface. Take your time with this step and cover every single area. Now at the same time that you're texturing, I like to put in our first rocks that we're going to be using. And again, these you can just find out in the driveway or in a park or a beach, wherever you happen to hang out. And you want these to be set into the ground, as rocks would naturally appear that way in nature. And we can just texture around those, make sure that we have some of the putty coming up over them. One over here, and you notice we're really pushing them in. And then again, just texture around them. Now that we've got the 2-part epoxy putty with a nice texture on it, I'm now going to start with a bag of our backyard dirt, and I'm also going to be using some of the Hudson and Allen ivy just as a starter base coat, if you will, for all the different grass effects that we're going to be applying. So here we're just going to tuck this in, and I do like to apply this type of ivy product while the putty is wet. We'll just get a bit of that in here. Okay, so we're going to press in just a bit more of that ivy. And if you've got a couple pieces that are too long, that's what scissors are for, just trim it up. Now we get a handful of the backyard dirt, and make sure Mom isn't around when you're doing this, because we're just going to scatter it loosely, you can see, very loosely, on the putty. Again, we're just basing on this step. The next video we're going to show you how this all comes together. And this is going to give us just really nice texture for all the effects to follow. Stay tuned for our next video when we begin to further detail out the groundwork. And always, thank you for stopping by Michigan Toy Soldier on YouTube.